my screen.
Okay, so in the meantime, I'm telling everyone that John is a security principal and chapter leader for OWASP Maine in the US. He joined the SAMM core team during the Open Security Summit last year and has become an extremely active member for the project. During his talk, he will review some of the tools that are currently available to assist in assessing the application security posture of the organization using OWASP SAMM. And what he wants is for this talk to be interactive. So go ahead and make me work. Don't be shy and share questions. John, will you be letting me know when you want to stop and check for questions so I don't interrupt you?
Feel free to ask any questions at any time. I prefer to have them and we can tackle them as we have them.
Okay, and now I'm going to share some links that John has for you. So you have real-time access to these things while he talks. All yours, John.
Great, thanks, Pat. So I appreciate the time for everyone joining me for this talk on OWASP SAMM Tools of the Trade. I have found that in the course of my time with SAMM that there are a broad number of tools, and I thought this topic might be helpful to those who are either new to it or unaware of the breadth of tools available to them, as well as some opportunities in the future for improving tools to do the assessment process. So just a quick background, I'm living in the US, attended university on the East Coast. I've been involved with software development, security, and IT technology for the last 20 years. I'm currently part of the OWASP Maine chapter, SAMM Project Core member, and a member of a few other organizations involving security and software development. So assessments in OWASP SAMM, that's what they're all about. It's intended to allow an organization to find out where you are, where you can improve, and where you want to be in the future by evaluating your activities in the business functions of the SAMM framework and the security posture within those activities. Essentially, you can determine a maturity level for the various activities and streams within the business functions using a number of the toolkits that are available. Some of these toolkits will allow you to do a very lightweight assessment, meaning you trust the respondent and there's no need to go into artifact gathering or detail gathering, whereas in some of the toolkits you can do much more detailed assessments where you're taking a trust but verify approach. With these assessments, there's a very well-defined maturity scoring process, which is the quality of the assessment score and then the coverage of that. So if you're in a case where the scope of your organization assessment is a number of applications, you may, some of those applications may actually be doing some of the activities at a certain maturity level while others may not. So the question answers reflect those coverage options, and we'll show some of those in a moment. This is an example of a question format for governance, strategy, and metrics, create and promote. And this is a pretty standard format for all of the questions within SAMM. We can see there's a stream that it's part of, the level maturity level that it's part of, the question itself, and then the criteria underneath the question. So in this particular case, you understand enterprise-wide risk appetite for applications, and then below it are the quality criteria that allow you to affirmatively answer the question. So if you capture the risk appetite of your organization's executive leadership, your organization's leadership have vetted and approved risks, you've identified the main business and technical threats, and risks are documented. If you are meeting all of those criteria, then you can affirmatively answer the question. And with each question, the answers have a kind of a scope level or coverage. And in this particular example of some answers on the right, the scores say none, some, at least half, or most. The important thing to keep in mind is the scope of the assessment. If you're doing a single application, you might find that the answer is more binary, whereas if you're doing an assessment where the scope is broader in your organization, such as multiple applications, you may find that some of your applications are doing something whereas in other cases it might be at least half or most. So the answers to the questions are reflective of that coverage capability. So I pulled together, over my time involved with the SAMM project, a number of various applications, tools, spreadsheets that exist that allow you to do the assessment, what we call the tools of the trade. One of the primary ones, and probably the most commonly used one, is the OWASP SAMM Toolkit, which is an Excel-based tool, which I'll go through in a moment. There's the SAMM 2.0 calculator by ConcordUSA, which is a company that does security assessments and has made an assessment tool available for free online. The SAMM 2.0 dashboard by Sathish, which we saw earlier, which is an outstanding job of presenting reporting and graphing of the assessment process. There's OWASP maturity models, which is a project that's been around since about 2017. Seems to be more oriented towards BSIM, but possibility for using for SAMM assessments as well. As well as some other versions, the OWASP SAMM Toolkit, which is a Google Docs version of the Excel instance, which makes it a little bit easier for people to access who don't have Excel. And then the OWASP SAMM Assessment, which is a merging of the questionnaire into Google Forms along with Google Data Studio for visualization. So I'm going to jump into those individually and go through them a little bit more detail. So the OWASP SAMM Toolkit, as I said, is an Excel-based product. It's quite an impressive Excel toolkit. If you've not seen it, it consists of several sheets. Sheet one being the interview sheet itself, where it goes through all of the 90 questions. So there are 90 questions in the assessment, as well with the possibility of selecting the appropriate answer, capturing notes, and in real time showing the rating for those for that question. There's a second tab for visualizing the maturity, roadmap mapping in phases, and roadmap chart for visualization as well. This is a ready for production use solution available at the URL at the bottom there. And just as an example here of what this looks like, there's the various business functions: governance, construction, verification, operations, design, and each one broken down into the different practices with their corresponding questions from the streams. So in this particular case, we can see the governance and the some pre-selected answers that I took to fill in. As you answer the questions, the rating on the right side will reflect the weighting of that particular question, and there's a field there for capturing interview notes. So when you fill out this particular form, it actually is configured with some macros and things to plug into the current maturity score graphing sheet, which is the second tab of this spreadsheet, and it gives you the current maturity score from the initial interview assessment process, as well as the breakdown within each of the practices and the maturity within each of those practices. In some cases, you'll find that there are teams that have a score that, or a positive answer that falls into more than one level of maturity. So you can see that in some cases, the maturity score is spread across multiple levels. On the right side, we see kind of a spider chart that shows the current maturity score, which when populated with the third tab in the sheet, which is the road mapping tool, will expand to show future phases. So this tool here, if you look on the far left side, you'll see that there's the current answer, the answer that was selected during the interview process. Using the road mapping tool, you can then go into the various streams and activities and questions and determine, based upon the risk level and appetite in your organization, where are the areas that you wish to focus and improve the maturity within your organization. So just as an example, in this particular case, I showed some, in green, you can see that questions change from the previous phase. So I go through phase one, select the question that I wish to improve, the category, and pick the next highest level or the proposed goal for that particular phase of the roadmap. You can see that the spreadsheet is actually programmed to highlight in red if you actually choose to go down in a phase, which is certainly not a recommended practice. And in green, you can see where there's actually improvements being planned. So in the particular case of this toolkit, it's a 4-phased approach where we start out, say, for the first category of a 0.63, and incrementally over time, we go to 0.75, 1.38, 1.38, with a goal of getting to about 1.88. The goal is something that I think is very specific to your organization, based upon a SWOT assessment of your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities. Taking that information, you can then, in partnership with your application teams and your leadership, determine the best areas of focus for your roadmap. So plugging these, updating the scoring within the roadmap will then generate some nice roadmap charts for you. And here's an example where we can see in the initial start of the interview process, the scoring for a particular team. And then as we modify the phases, we can start to prioritize activities in different areas of that particular function. So that's the Excel toolkit. The second toolkit that I wanted to talk about is the ConcordUSA SAMM tool. And this particular tool is a web-based application, so no need to utilize a Microsoft Excel tool for or deal with Microsoft licensing if you don't have that available to you. This is a self-guided assessment which provides a similar format of question and answers. It has the ability to show the quality criteria for a particular question. And then as you guide through this assessment, you can see a function and practice breakdown and a maturity breakdown. It does provide the overall progress to the users as they go through the process. And at the end of the assessment, if you're willing to share some contact information with ConcordUSA, you can see some industry benchmark comparisons that they've amassed from prior assessments. And it is ready to use. You can visit it at the link below and begin to use it today to do what I would say is a lightweight assessment of your organization. Here's a quick screenshot of what the web apps questionnaire looks like, an example of the results for a particular function. So then the third tool that we have in our list, in our toolbox, there's an option, is the SAMM 2.0 dashboard by Sathish, which I'm going to just mention quickly since Sathish did such a great job earlier today on presenting on it. But it is an authenticated app, web-based application. Provides some role-based access control for auditors, admins, and regular users. Shows some nice trending. So on the right there, you can see a number of the visualizations of the data that you've captured through the assessment process. It is written in Angular. It's hosted on the OWASP SAMM GitHub. It does provide some report generation, self-hosted. So if you wanted to stand this up in your own organization, you could do so. And Sathish has provided some great documentation on how to do that yourself, and it is ready to use. This one is a slightly older project still on GitHub, but maybe not so actively developed and more focused on BSIMM, the OWASP maturity models. It might be worth looking into if you have strong interest in the BSIMM component of assessments. This particular one, again, it's a node-based project, open source, available on GitHub, and it is a self-hosted solution, so you have to get this up and running in your organization. I haven't had a chance to try much and play around with this particular one, so if people do and they have feedback and want to share their experiences, that would be appreciated. And then here's a kind of an interesting thing that I tried recently, which is taking the existing SAMM toolkit, the Excel-based tool, and plugging it into Google Sheets. So Google has a pretty robust ability to import an existing Excel document, and generally works out of the box, except for probably some more advanced scripting or macros that you might be using. In my assessment of the Google Sheets version of it, it's been working pretty well so far. I am still going through a validation of that, and if others are interested in helping out with that, I've provided a link at the bottom there that provides access to it. You can make a copy of it and edit it as you like and test as well. Google Sheets is nice that you can readily share it with others without any licensing issues. Of course, you do have to generally have an account with Google, and there are probably considerations to be made about capturing your data and sharing it with Google, but I'll leave that to you and your organization's policy as to whether you should do it. But as a way of playing around with the toolkit and the assessment process and seeing how it all fits together, it's a nice way of trialing that out. And then another recent incarnation, which again I've been tooling around with a bit and would love to have some others have feedback on. And again, primarily my reason for using the Google toolset is that it allows you to quickly prototype some things and share with others to get feedback. So I took the assessment questionnaire and put it into a Google form, which has the ability to then store data in Google Sheets. It's a nice self-service form. The form provides the question and the quality criteria for your users, as well as the answer. It does also provide the ability for responses to be edited later on if for some reason there's a need to do that. And then the data is, as I said, is captured in Google Sheets. So this provides the ability to export it to other reporting tools, export it to a database or Excel, and also to share with others. In this particular screenshot here and linked at the bottom there, I connected Google Data Studio up to the Google Sheet and started to pull together some charting that shows the OWASP SAMM progress in a particular made-up organization. I think these tools are handy especially for folks who are new to SAMM and want to understand the types of questions that are asked in an easy to digest format, maybe before they go into reading the full framework. And again, it allows for a lot of flexibility. One can take the assessment toolkit and copy it from Google and make their own customizations to suit the needs of their organization, as well as the Google Data Studio dashboard as well. Those can be copied and modified to suit a particular organization's needs.
John, excuse
Yes.
me, I'm interrupting you for a bit because there seems to be a permissions issue with the Data Studio.
Okay.
Some attendees are saying that they can't access it, and I tried as well, and it requires someone to grant access to that. Okay,
thanks for sharing that back. I will definitely take a look at that. And if there is an ability to send a request, I will definitely remediate that and take it after this and share back the proper link. Thank you.
Thank you.
So another thing that, there's a number of toolboxes. So what does that mean for the SAMM team? We've decided to put on a roadmap some improvements to the assessment toolbox over the next year or two. And I think, there's a lot of interest and activity in this. So I wanted to share the opportunity to request feedback from folks who are using any of the toolkits, and should be shared back with everybody in the SAMM project. So I pulled together a quick Google form for feature requests. If you have some ideas or feedback on any of the links that we've shared today that you feel would be helpful to us to improve and provide a SAMM application for doing this, that would be great. You can also, of course, drop a line to OWASP SAMM anytime at the link below to contact us. I put my email address here, so anybody who's trying to access the Google Data Studio and is having some challenges, just send me a quick note and I will take care of that for you. I'm not exactly sure of the specific details of Google Data Studio sharing, but I can make sure that you have the ability to have access to that as well. So thanks.
Okay, so is there anyone who has any questions for for John about any of the tools that he talked about. Kimberly says that she added a retrospective to a roadmap sheet in the toolbox, and it is very useful for data analysis and presentation to executives. So that was a comment, not a question, but anyway, thanks.
Actually, there's a follow-up question from Kimberly. She asked, so you can visualize past, present, and future scores, or is that a question or a remark?
I think it's a remark.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yep.
Yep, so the road mapping component, you basically build off of the initial interview, and you set the various levels that you would like to be at in the various phases. You can use the 4-phased approach, which is part of the default toolbox. It might be an interesting feature might be the ability to select how many phases you might like to go through to get to your goal. And that may be 2 phases, 4 phases, 6 phases, or 8 phases. But the current toolkit has the 4 phases and a visualization for your progress over that time, so that you can actually see during each of those phases, whether that's a 6-month period, 3 months, 6 month, 12-month period, validate that you've actually achieved those goals over time by reviewing the questions that you've committed to improving upon. Yep.
So are we, oh, I think there's a question. Would the presentation be available somewhere on the OWASP site or on the event page? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We are having all the presentations available sometime this week, maybe. So make sure to check our website and the YouTube videos as well. They are going to continue to be, we are live now, but they are going to be available on the OWASP SAMM YouTube channel. Is that right, Seva?
Yes, indeed. Given some time for editing, definitely, that's the plan.
Yeah. So maybe Bart can share his screen now with the information on the next part of the user day. Then we have, after a 15-minute break, we're going to have Dennis talking about lean security, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, indeed. So that's the plan. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule there, John. Thanks for doing that. And so indeed, next up is Dennis, but that's in 20 minutes. So we'll have a little bit longer of a break there.